Hi. Frog and I are trying to stay warm. It is very, very, very cold in here today. Page 133. Indigo slept. The bleeding stopped after a day, and the pain stopped after a week. They buried Domingo, and for the first and last time Indigo left Arabella. His face bandaged, he rode in Eustace's carriage to Madrid, where he lived on Eustace's house, obeyed Eustace's commands. After a month, the bandages were removed, but the scars were still deep red. Eventually, they softened. Some, but they always remained the chief features of Indigo's face, with giant parallel scars running one on each side from temple to chin. For 2 years, Eustace cared for him. Then one morning, Indigo was gone, and in his place were 3 words: I must learn, on a note pinned to his pillow. Learn? Learn what? What existed beyond Madrid that the child had to commit to memory? Eustace shrugged and sighed. It was beyond him. There was no understanding children anymore. Everything was changing too fast, and the young were different. Beyond him, life was beyond him. The world was beyond him, you name it, it was beyond him. He was a fat man who made swords, that much he knew. So he made more swords, and he grew fatter, and the years went by. As his figure spread, so did his fame. From all across the world they came, begging him for weapons, so he doubled his prices, because he didn't want to work too hard anymore. He was getting old. But when he doubled his prices, when the news spread from duke to prince to king, they only wanted him more desperately. Now, the wait was 2 years for a sword, and the lineup of royalty was unending, and Eustace was growing tired. So he doubled his prices again. And when that didn't stop them, he decided to triple already doubled and redoubled prices. And besides that, all work had to be paid for in jewels in advance. And the wait was up to 3 years. But nothing would stop them. They had to have swords by Eustace or nothing. And even though the work on the finest was nowhere what it once was, Domingo, after all, no longer could save him. The silly rich men didn't notice. All they wanted were his weapons, and they fell over each other with jewels for him. Eustace grew very rich, and very heavy. Every part of his body sagged. He had the only fat thumbs in Madrid. Dressing took an hour, breakfast the same. Everything went slowly. But he could still make swords, and people still craved them. I'm sorry, he said to the young Spaniard who entered his shop one particular morning. The wait is up to 4 years, and even I am embarrassed to mention the price. Have your weapon made by another. I have my weapon, the Spaniard said, and he threw the 6-fingered sword across Eustace's workbench. Such embraces. Never leave again, Eustace said. I eat too much when I am lonely. I cannot stay, Indigo told him. I am only here to ask you one question. As you know, I've spent the last 10 years learning. Now I have come for you to tell me if I'm ready. Ready? For what? What in the world have you been learning? The sword. Madness, says Eustace. You have spent 10 entire years just learning to fence? No, not just learning to fence, Indigo answered. I did many other things as well. Tell me. Well, Indigo began, 10 years is what? Another 3,600 days? That's about, I figured this out once, so I remember pretty well, about 86,000 hours. Well, I made it a point to get 4 hours of sleep per night. That's 14,000 hours right there, leaving me perhaps 72,000 hours to account for. You slept. I'm with you. What else? Well, I squeezed rocks. I'm sorry. My hearing sometimes fails me. It sounds like you said you squeezed rocks. To make my wrist strong, so I could control the sword. Rocks like apples, that size. I would squeeze them in each hand for perhaps 2 hours a day, and I'd spend another 2 hours a day skipping and dodging and moving quickly, so that my feet would always be able to get me into the position to deliver properly the thrust of the sword. That's another 14,000 hours. I'm down to 58,000 now. Well, I also sprinted 2 hours a day, as fast as I could, so my legs, as well as being quick, would also be strong. That gets me down to 50,000 hours a day. That gets me down to about 50,000 hours. Eustace examined the young man before him, blade thin, 6 feet in height, straight as a sapling, bright-eyed taut. Even motionless, he seemed to whip it quick. And these last 50,000 hours, these have been spent studying the sword. Indigo nodded. Where? Wherever I could find a master. Venice, Bourges, Budapest. I could have taught you here. True, but you care for me. You would not have been ruthless. You would have said, excellent parry, Indigo. Now that's enough for one day. Let's have supper. Yes, that sounds like me, Yeasty admitted, but why is this so important? Why was it worth so much of your life? Because I could not fail him again. Fail who? My father. I spent all these years preparing to find the six-figured man and kill him in a duel. But he is a master, Yeasty. He said as much, and I saw the way his sword flew at Domingo. I must not lose that duel when I find him, so now I have come to you. You know swords and swordsmen. You must not lie. Am I ready? If you say I am, I will seek him throughout the world. If you say no, I will spend another 10 years and another 10 after that, if that is what is needed. So they went to Yeasty's courtyard. It was late morning, hot. Yeasty put his body in a chair and the chair in the shade. Indigo stood waiting in the sunshine. We need not test desire. We both know you have sufficient motive to deliver the deathly blow, Yeasty said. Therefore, we need only to probe your knowledge and speed and stamina. We need no enemy for this. The enemy is always in the mind. Visualize him. Indigo drew his sword. The six-fingered man taunts you, Yeasty called. Do what you can. Indigo began to leap around the courtyard, the great blade flashing. He uses the Agrippa defense, Yeasty shouted. Immediately, Indigo shifted position, increased the speed of the sword. Now he surprises you with the Bontini attack, but Indigo was not surprised for long. Again his feet shifted, his body moved a different way. Perspiration was pouring down his thin frame now, and the great blade was blinding. Yeasty continued to shout. Indigo continued to shift. The blade never stopped. At 3 in the afternoon, Yeasty said, Enough. I am exhausted from watching. Indigo sheathed the six-fingered sword and waited. You wish to know if I feel you are ready to duel the death? A man ruthless enough to kill your father? Rich enough to buy protection? Older, more experienced? An acknowledged master? Indigo nodded. I'll tell you the truth, and it's up to you to live with. First, there's never been a master as young as you. 30 years at least before the rank has yet been reached, and you're barely 22. Well, the truth is, you are an impetuous boy, driven by madness, and you are not now, and you never will be a master. Thank you for your honesty, Indigo said. I must tell you, I had hoped for better results. I find it very hard to speak just now. If you please excuse me, I'll be on my... I had not finished, Yeasty said. What else is there to say? I loved your father very dearly. That you know. But this you did not know. When we were very young, not yet 22, we saw, with our own eyes, an exhibit by the courtesan wizard Baista. I know of no wizards. It is the rank beyond master in swordsmanship, Yeasty said. Baista was the last man so designated. Long before your birth, he died at sea. There have been no wizards since, and you would never in this world have beaten him. But I'll tell you this. He would never in this world have beaten you. Indigo stood silent for a long time. I'm ready then. I would not enjoy being the six-fingered man, was all Yeasty replied. The next morning, Indigo began the track down. He had all carefully prepared in his mind. He would find the six-fingered man, he would go up to him, and he would simply say, Hello, my name is... I lost my place. The next morning, Indigo began the track down. He had it all carefully prepared in his mind. He would find the six-fingered man, and he would go up to him, and he would say simply, Hello, my name is... Why can't I say this today? Hello, my name is Indigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepared to die. And then, the duel. It was a lovely plan, really. Simple, direct, no frills. In the beginning, Indigo had all kinds of wild vengeance notions, but gradually, simplicity had seemed the better way. Originally, he had all kinds of little plays worked out in his mind. The enemy would weep and beg, the enemy would cringe and cry, the enemy would bribe and slobber, and act in every way unmanly. But eventually, these too gave way in his mind to simplicity. The enemy would simply say, Oh yes, I remember killing him. I I'll only be too delighted to kill you too. Indigo had only one problem. He could not find the enemy. It never occurred to him that there would be the least difficulty. After all, how many noblemen were there with 6 fingers on their right hands? Surely it would be the talk of whatever vicinity he happened to be. A few questions. Pardon, I'm not crazy, but have you seen a 6-fingered nobleman lately? And surely, sooner or later, there'd be an answering yes. But it did not come sooner. The later wasn't the kind of thing you'd want to hold your breath for either. The first month wasn't all that discouraging. Indigo crisscrossed Spain and Portugal. The next month he moved to France and spent the rest of the year there. The following year, that was his Italian year, and then came Germany and the whole of Switzerland. It was only after 5 solid years of failure that he began to worry. By then he had seen all the Balkans and most of Scandinavia, and he had visited the Florentines and the natives of Gilder, and into Mother Russia, and stepped down around the entire Mediterranean. By then he knew what had happened. 10 years learning was 10 years too long. Too much had been allowed to happen. The 6-figure man probably was crusading in Asia, or getting rich in America, or a hermit in the Indies, or dead. Indigo, at the age of 27, began having a few extra glasses of wine at night to help him get to sleep. At 28, he was having a few extra glasses to help him digest his lunch. At 29, the wine was essential to wake him in the morning. His world was collapsing around him. Not only was he living a daily failure, something almost as dreadful was beginning to happen. Fencing was beginning to bore him. He was simply too good. He'd make his living during his travels by finding a local champion wherever he happened to be, and they would duel, and Indigo would disarm him, and accept whatever they happened to bet. With his winnings, he would pay for his food and his lodging and his wine. But the local champions were nothing. Even in the big cities, the local experts were nothing. Even in the capital cities, the local masters were nothing. There was no competition, nothing to help keep him on the edge. His life began to seem pointless, his quest pointless, everything, without reason. At 30, he gave up the ghost. He stopped his search, forgot to eat, slept only on occasion. He had his wine for company, and that was enough. He was a shell, the greatest fencing machine since the courtesan wizard was barely even practicing the sword. He was in that condition when the Sicilian found him. At first, the little hunchback only supplied him with stronger wine, but then, through a combination of praise and nudging, the Sicilian began to get him off the bottle. Because the Sicilian had a dream. With his guile, plus the Turk's strength, plus the Spaniard's sword, they might become the most effective criminal organization in the civilized world. And that is precisely what they became. In dark places their names whipped sharper. Fear. Everyone with needs were hard. In dark places their names whipped sharper than fear. Everyone had needs that were hard to fulfill. The Sicilian crowd, 2 is company, 3 is a crowd, even then, became more and more famous and more rich. Nothing was beyond or beneath them. Indigo's blade was flashing again. More than ever like lightning, the Turk's strength grew more prodigious with the months, but the hunchback was the leader. They would never doubt. Without him, Indigo knew that they would be on his back begging wine in some alley entrance. The Sicilian's word was not just law, it was gospel. So when he said, "Kill the man in black," all other possibilities ceased to exist. The man in black had to die. Say night. Night.